Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of Fantastic Four Epic Collection Volume 1. Now this is where it all starts. Back in 1961, lots of classic stories. You've got Fantastic Four 1 to 18. There's no annuals or anything like that. 456 pages. Now this is quite an old issue of this volume. I think it was 2014, 2012, something like that. There is a later one, 2021. It should be still in print. I've just looked, still seems to be available. So Volume 1, 1961 to 1963, and you've got loads of great characters, villains, all turning up. You've got Cosmic Avengers straight away with, of course, the Skrulls. You've got Doctor Doom, and also Super Skrull as well. Loved the old Super Skrull. You can see all the epics that were available at the time. You can see very, very few at the point. But you can see the stories there. So you've got the Menace of the Miracle Man. You've got the Coming of the Submariner. I mean, obviously a classic appearance from Submariner. Even if the origin was slightly odd, they sort of retrofitted it with a story about Destiny later on. And you've got this. Of course, you've got the Fantastic Four. Now, it's all been restored. So if you want to see it in the original form, obviously get the original comics. That would be a great start. But they're ridiculously expensive. I've seen issues going for £2,000 or £3,000. Obviously now, probably a lot higher than that. But been restored, so you've got all the sort of colouring thing. Not everyone likes that. But I still can read this story over and over again, even though I have sort of read it probably hundreds of times. I don't know how many times, but you've got the thing crashing through there. Now, it makes little sense, I have to say, him suddenly, because he's in a shop and he comes out of the shop. I've always thought, well, hang on, how do you get in the shop in the first place if you can't? But still, doesn't do any stories often have to make any sense. But you get the origin. It's quite a short origin, very quick, done in chapters, and I love the way they did them in chapters back then. Also, you've got characters obviously like there, the Human Torch, looking very different from how he looked later. Very different style. Even the Thing, of course, changed. He doesn't look at all like that now. Straight away, we've got this great story of the Skrulls. I love the cover. The cover with this one, number 2, just was a favourite. Really brilliant cover, real intense, bright yellow. That must have stood out on the, even if it made very little sense in terms of, but that red and the yellow, but a really, really brilliant cover. The greatest comic magazine in the world. And of course, got Miracle Man floating there. It's not particularly a great character, but still, you do, of course, get the Fantastic Car and also the Fantastic Four costumes, which is great. Again, still chapters there. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. But you got Submariner next story, just great. And I love the fact that they show this sort of early Submariner comic. Obviously, it's no comic. I don't know why they didn't actually just choose a comic and just, instead of having one that was obviously slightly faked up cover. But still, I love the next one, Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom first appearance. And of course, they go back in time. They become pirates. I mean, wow, how cool was that? It was just absolute. I just loved that at the time. Just thought, wow, time machine, going back. And they didn't really do that often then. And sometimes they do occasionally do that with like the Egyptian story, obviously Ramatut, but not that many time travel stories. Perhaps it was just not even going really into the future, particularly when friends fall out. But you've also got here as well, you've got brilliant, straight away, a team up, a villain team up, Doctor Doom and Submariner. Just love that. But you've still got these sort of monster stories. A lot of these stories really felt like they were still monster stories. 24 hours to 0. And I love that one. That one's been reused. Alex Ross did a brilliant one. I just love that Alex Ross recent Fantastic Four book. Just amazing book. We've got that Puppet Master. Bit of a non-character, but still, of course, you've got this one. I just think it's Back from the Dead. You've got there, obviously Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, etc. Oh, obviously Doctor Doom turning up at the Marvel offices, bringing that world, obviously the real world, into the comic world. I just thought that was just really, truly amazing. It just felt like somehow, oh, you mean Fantastic Four really just exists kind of thing? No place to turn. And also I love the inventiveness in these early stories. You got this sort of thing. Never done that since. I don't think there's been any story where you've had small little animals going across the floor. I mean, that would be just so weird, wouldn't it? Very, very odd. And obviously Doc Doom has obviously been into Reed Richards. I just love that story. This probably has to be my number one favourite story. A visit with the Fantastic Four. I just love that. I just love those sort of stories where, I don't know why I've never done a visit with the Avengers, a visit with X-Men. They could have done that with all the stories. Or a day in the life of the Spider-Man or something, where we follow him around to see him do the shopping kind of thing. Of course, one thing with Marvel, they loved doing crossovers. So you've got the Incredible Hulk. I suspect, and I don't know, I haven't checked, that he wasn't in his own comic at this time. So he's got introduced into this story, the Incredible Hulk. Now, I don't know why they cancelled the book. It just, I mean, I assume the sales were not brilliant, but I think that they were better than... But still, you couldn't obviously let a character like that die. And I just thought it was a brilliant story, even though the actual storyline with the Hulk is not really that long. There's just a little bit when they meet crossover, but still, it's enough just to introduce the Hulk versus the Thing. Of course, a story that they've run many, many times since. And of course, you got the Red Ghost. Red Ghost was a great character. I always felt the Super Apes could have been a bit more. To me, the Super Apes, they could have like developed intelligence with the Super Apes. That would have been a great storyline. And then we'd have had a little bit more. Red Ghost himself was a bit of obviously a complete non-entity story. It was obviously from the communist period. There was of course a lot of those stories, like Iron Man had loads of communist stories. And of course this was sort of carry on from that. But it did introduce the Watcher. That was one of the great things in this story. I love the Watcher, the concept of the Watcher. Of course we find out more about the Watcher later on. You've got Submariner, of course. I love the fact that Submariner is just great. They had him like running a studio, Hollywood studio kind of thing. Also, the Puppet Master was controlling him and all those sorts of things. Just great little stories. I just really thought it was a great character. And, of course, there was quite a few Submariner appearances. But again, he didn't have his own comic book at that point. So I guess that it was a sort of way of just keeping these characters in the sort of public eye until eventually they were turning up in their books. You've got the Mad Thinker and the Awesome Android. I've always got a soft spot for the Awesome Android. He sort of turns up all over the place. Doesn't exactly have much of a character there, does he? But still, slightly better than the Mad Thinker most of the time, who I always thought was absolutely terrible. Obviously, all these supercomputers, and all he does is sort of works out crime, but there's always that factor that causes them the problem. Really? Again, another crossover. We got, of course, the Ant-Man, and they've just released the Ant-Man and Wasp Volume 2 Epic Collection. I thought, wow, finally. So it's just great to see. Obviously there, Ant-Man and Wasp was in the story. Now it was, for some weird reason, and I can't remember the reason why, it was Doc Doom was in the story, but it was Ant-Man was the main character. They didn't have the Wasp go down with him, just shrinking down kind of thing. But still, all very confusing stuff that. But Doc Doom again turns up, and you got a few more stories. But the next story is one of my favourites. I love this story. It probably doesn't really hold up very well, really. But at the same time, to me, it was a favourite. The Super Skrull. Not the world's greatest of covers. I mean, you have to say that as a cover doesn't really sell it, because especially you've got the confusing bit, obviously, with Super Skrull there, the all-powerful Super Skrull. Now, he wasn't all-powerful, but he had the powers of the Fantastic Four, and a lot more as well. He was really sort of oomphed up, far more powerful, and of course you had the power source from the Skrull world. But you have got some great extras at the back as well. I love the extras. This is great. You've got the synopsis. This is from July 1961, as it says there. Schedule, Fantastic Four. Meet the Fantastic Four. And it's got lots of details about invents a spaceship to go to Mars. Hopes to be the first man to reach Mars. All those sort of things. I just think it's just great. Also, Susan Storm. She's an actress. Beautiful, glamorous. And there's lots of other details, slightly different from obviously what happened later on. Also, you've got the cover. Now, that's just great. But the cover is a slight variation. I don't know why they changed it, but still, there is a slight variation in the cover. Of course, these sort of things, who knows? People's memories about why or things change. And of course, all the people now are dead that would have been involved. Martin Goodman would have been there. Obviously, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee. So we will never probably know. Now, you've got this as well, all the design elements. Now, I don't know if they've been printed anywhere else. I can't remember seeing them. I don't know if they're in the omnibus. I'm certain they're not in the Taschen one either. But I don't know why they're suddenly stuck in here. But I always feel that these sort of collections obviously usually go up the scale in terms of the Taschen book. I always felt that all this sort of material should be in there. I might be wrong on that. Maybe it is in there. But I think there's certain things I think, why haven't they included that? But also you've got some other ones here. Another one that's original rendering of Sue Storm. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, she looks very different there. Unbelievable. Yeah, there's a slight different. Really amazing. Never even noticed that, the slight difference there. Also, I love these sort of things. I love all the ones where it shows now on sale, etc. Fascinating ones. And watch for greatest symbols. So that's what you get for this, like I say, small selection of bonus material. But the book itself, Absolutely brilliant. I love this Epic collection. The world's greatest comic magazine. I love it. Totally recommended.